Hello, welcome back to my podcast, Conversations with My Clients. Today, I am going to talk about a very popular conversation that I regularly have with my clients. And basically, the question that I'm often asked is, can you do anything to remove fat from insert problem area here? So essentially, can you spot reduce fat? And the answer to this is no. I'm really sorry. But unfortunately, no, you cannot spot reduce fat. So if you see something on social media that tells you that you can get rid of your tummy fat by doing this one thing, or get rid of your bingo wings by doing this thing, I'm really sorry, but it's probably bullshit. So don't click it. And they're going to try and sell you something silly. I'm sorry. To not be such a negative Nancy, though, maybe I can explain a little bit about what you can do if you do have an area on your body that you would like to lose some excess fat from. And I guess probably it's a good place to start to explain why we store fat in the first place. And I guess this is quite a cool mechanism, really, if you think about it. Back in the days when we were hunters and gatherers and living in caves, it was a way of being able to store energy from when times were great and food was plenty to help us survive essentially during times when there wasn't much food around. So, quite a nifty feature if you lived in prehistoric times. But we now live in a world where food is readily available to us at all times. And the stuff that seems to be most readily available is stuff that tends to be quite energy dense. We live in a world where food manufacturers are paid money to make food as moreish as it can possibly be to encourage us to eat more and more and more of it. So we are basically consuming a lot of energy and we're not expending it. So once it's inside your body, it doesn't just disappear if it's not used. Extra energy gets stored in your body as body fat. So because we live in this environment, it's really common for us to store fat on our bodies. Now, where we store fat on our bodies is quite genetic. Otherwise, we would all look the same. We would all store our fat in the same place. Also, there's a hormonal element to it. Women tend to store fat around their breasts, around their hips, around their butts, whereas men tend to store fat around their abdomens. When women start to go through perimenopause and beyond, have passed their menopause, they tend to find that with their changing hormonal levels, they start to gain fat around their middle as well, much in the same way that men do. So there are lots of different factors at play into why we store fat on different areas of our body. So in terms of how we can remove fat, although we can't choose the area of our body where we lose fat from, we can lose fat from our bodies in general. So a few ways that you can do this. I've talked a bit about energy and storage of energy. So we get energy into our bodies through the food that we eat and the drinks that we drink. I purposefully include drinks there because some drinks do also have calories, and a lot of people don't really take that into account. I was horrified to learn that my favorite medium oat milk flat white from the cafe down the road from the gym just has a casual 275 calories per cup in it, which is actually, enough calories for a small meal. So, we must take those calories into account as well when we consider all of the energy that we're putting into our body. So, if we know roughly how much energy our body expends on a daily basis, one method of digging into our fat stores is by consuming less calories than what the body needs on a daily basis to operate. So we would call this a calorie deficit, and that can be achieved by lowering the amount of calories that you consume. Another way that you can lose fat is by increasing the amount of energy that you expend. So if you were working with me, for example, and you had a fat loss goal, I would be strongly encouraging you to have a daily movement target, usually a step goal, just to make sure that you're moving every day. You would have minimum exercise targets just to make sure that you are constantly moving your body, because the more and more you move, the more energy that you use. And if you're not consuming enough energy to meet that demand, the energy has to come from somewhere, and your body will go into your fat stores, take some energy so that it can operate. Really, the best way and the most efficient way to lose excess body fat is by doing a combination of those two things. So eating in a little bit of a calorie deficit, but also increasing your expenditure through your movement. So you're creating a really nice energy deficit consistently, so your body will start to use its fat stores to make up that shortfall in energy. So you can't force your fat to disappear from certain areas first, but you might notice that it goes from some places quicker, I guess, than other places. And to be honest, that's because some places just have more space to store fat. So, for example, our forearms don't tend to be an area where you store a lot of fat compared to somewhere like your tummy. So when you are on a fat loss journey, so to speak, you might not necessarily notice that you have lost some fat from your forearms, because no one really complains about, oh, my forearms are feeling really thick and chunky. Like, I've never heard that. Maybe I'm wrong, but you won't have noticed that you would have probably lost some fat from there, because there isn't as much fat there as opposed to your stomach or your breast, where you might store quite a lot of fat. So it's not that you are not losing fat from those areas, it's just that there is more fat there, so you might not notice it as much. So really, when you are looking at, usually the area that you want to spot reduce fat from is usually an area where there is more fat in the first place, so it just takes longer. So you might perceive yourself, go, oh look, I'm looking pretty lean, but look, I've still got belly fat. How do I get rid of my belly fat? And it's likely that your belly fat will have decreased over the period of time that you've been losing that excess fat. It's just that there's more there, so it's just going to take a little bit more time. So if you are in an appropriate deficit and you are losing fat from elsewhere in your body, basically the answer is to just keep going, keep persevering, keep doing what you're doing, and it will come eventually. It just takes time. So it's not a disaster. No, you cannot spot reduce fat, but you can lose fat, and it will lose from your body. And if you consistently remain in that calorie deficit, either by consuming less or by moving more or doing a combination of the both, then you eventually are going to get where you want to go to. This is quite a boring process, I'm not going to lie. And this is why sometimes coaching can be quite helpful, because a coach like myself is going to be able to make sure that you are sticking to those consistent daily behaviors that are going to get you to your goal when you lose motivation, because it's quite boring and samey. So if this is something that resonates with you and you're like, oh my God, yes, I really want to lose fat from this area, but I keep giving up because you don't have that patience to get there, then maybe you might need some professional assistance from a coach as well. So if you are needing help, you can get in touch with me. All of my contact details are in the bio of wherever you are watching or listening to this. Otherwise, keep tuning in for more conversations that I have with my clients. I've actually had some requests already, so there will be some interesting topics coming up. If you want me to talk about anything in particular, drop me a message and I'll record an episode in the future. Thank you once again. See you next time.